Hare Krishna. I have no idea if we're live. Don't think we are. Done what it did last time.
Yeah, you're live.
Oh, we are. Hey, thanks, Arjuna. Hey, Hare Krishna, everybody. Jaya Sila here from down at Marathon near the Coromandel. It seems like people are tuning in from everywhere, including me. So this morning's verse is Srimatam, 4th canto, 7th chapter, text number 25. And I think we're going to end up doing 26 and 7 because there's no purports that I can see at this point. So we'll do 25 and then we'll go to the first purport and work from there. Okay, you could bear my singing Jai Radha Madhava, but maybe we'll just move into the purport because we don't have any musical accompaniment. Okay, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam 4.7.25. Daksho grihitarhana sadanotamam Yagneshvaram Vishvasrijam Param Gurum Sunanda Nanda Dhyanugrer Muda Grinan Prapede Prayata Kritanjali. Translation. Is Divine Grace Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. When Lord Vishnu accepted the oblations offered in the sacrifice, Daksha the Prajapati began with great pleasure to offer respectful prayers unto him. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is actually the master of all sacrifices and preceptor of all the Prajapatis, and he is served even by such personalities as Nanda and Sunanda. Srila Prabhupada doesn't give purport. We can hardly imagine how exalted Nanda and Sunanda are when we're hearing that the Lord is served even by such personalities as Nanda and Sunanda. So very exalted persons. Text number 26. Daksho vacha ham swadham yapnyam uparakila buddhyavashtam chinmatram ekam abhayam pratishidyamayam tishtam stayaiva purushatvam upetya tasyam ashte bhavan aparishuddha ivatma tantra. Translation. Daksha addressed the personality of Godhead. My dear, you are dental to all speculative positions. You are completely spiritual, devoid of all fear, and you are always in control of the material energy. Even though you appear in material energy, you are situated transcendentally. You are always free from material contamination because you are completely self-sufficient. There's only one personality that we can describe in this way, and that is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Ekala Ishvara Krishna Ara Sabha Brita. Krishna alone is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and everyone else is his servant. So amazing ability of the Supreme Lord. Srila Prabhupada uses the example often that just as a spider is able to create an amazing construction which captures all other insects, he himself is able to move freely with that manifestation of creation. So it's a gross example, but it helps us to see how it's possible for an entity to do such a thing. So the Supreme Lord is able to do that, although creating everything and although appearing in that external energy in his different incarnations and pastimes, he's never affected by the whole thing. And just as a spider does, we hear that he winds the whole cosmic manifestation up again in due course of time. Wow. And he's time, himself says, time I am. And I've come to engage all persons. So that's the nature of the external energy. The time factor is pushing, constantly pushing us through. And we're hanging on. We want permanency. We want that feeling, that kindred feeling that we want permanency. We want knowledge and we want bliss. Satchidananda. That is our actual position of existence, and we hanker for it, we crave for it, we search for it, we want it so badly. But Krishna is explaining that this is not a place, this is the place of dukkhalayama shashvatam napnuvanti mahatmanas. So this material world is not able to give us this shelter. So this is the difference between the living entity and the supreme living being, is that the Supreme Lord is completely self-sufficient, and we are so dependent. Nityo nityanam chetanas chetananam ekubahunam vidadhati kaman. The Vedas explain that different living entities, and there's supreme being, and that supreme being amazingly and supplying all the necessities of all the dependent living entities. So we are not self-sufficient, although we talk about it. Talk about self-sufficiency. Yes, we can become self-sufficient, or efficient would be not a bad start. But the idea of self-sufficiency is that we're able to live in harmony with the creation that is manifest by that self-sufficient person. And that way we could become self-sufficient. But if you look at it, we understand that everything is being provided by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The air that we breathe, we don't know where it comes from, but we just seem to breathe it. The machine that we use to breathe, this material body, is supplied at our birth, and it manifests and grows just like all the other seeds that are produced and manifested. The food that we eat, it's grown by the arrangement of the sun and all the different elements. So everything is given by that self-sufficient person. So we'll just move on to text number 27. Ritvija uchu atvam na te vayam ananjana rashapat karmanyavagrahadyo bhagan vidamaha dharmo palakshanam idam trivrid advarakyam gyatam yad artam adhidhaivam ado vyavastita. So what we're hearing here is different personalities addressing the Supreme Lord. So now it's the turn of priests. The priests, they address the Lord saying, O Lord, transcendental to material contamination, by the curse offered by Lord Shiva's men, we have become attached to fruit of activities. and thus we are now fallen, and therefore do not know anything about you. Wow. So this is the this is the condition when we become attached to the material world. We forget everything about the Supreme Lord. So the priests are saying like that. Now we've been cursed by Lord Shiva's men, and we've become attached to fruitive activities. And therefore we are now fallen to have the conscious awareness of you and that deep connection. But now we're so much interested in fruitive activities. They go on to say, on the contrary, we are now involved in the injunctions of the three departments of the Vedic knowledge under the plea of executing rituals in the name of yajna. We know that you have made arrangements for distributing the respective shares of the demigods. Wow, let's listen to Srila Prabhupada's explanation. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The Vedas are known as Trigunya Vishaya Veda, Bhagavad Gita 245. Those who are serious students of the Vedas are very much attached to the ritualistic ceremonies mentioned in the Vedas, and therefore these Vedavadis cannot understand that the ultimate goal of the Vedas is to understand Lord Krishna or Vishnu. Matevidu, I'll just pause there and say if we can say a few words. Natevidu swartatim hi Vishnu rasaye bahiratamanina andaya tande rupani yamanas tipeshi tantriyamurudam nibadha. The Srimad Bhagavatam is explaining that the tipeshi tantriyam urudam nibadha. People do not know that the goal of life is to return home back to Godhead and engage in the service of Lord Vishnu. So they're bewildered by the flowery words, and Srila Prabhupada quoted earlier this Trigunya Vishaya Veda, Bhagavad Gita 245. Krishna was advising Arjuna to rise above these three modes of material nature and the absorption in the Vedic literature. That the flowery words of the Vedas are very captivating, and one will conclude that the best deal that you can have is to make progress in the material world, to elevate our position in the world, to take a higher birth, to go to higher planetary system, to Svargaloka and Tapaloka, different lokas, different realms are there. And the amazing thing is that wherever we go with our consciousness, we become absorbed in it and think that this is the all in all. So Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita also is saying that by all the Vedas, I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of the Vedas and the knower of Vedanta. The purpose of the Vedas is to know me, the ultimate purpose. So this requires a spiritual master. This Tadviganartam Sagarum Eva Vibhagachet. So the approach, a bona fide spiritual master coming in the line of disciplic succession. And this is the way to understand. Otherwise, we'll approach someone in some way and we'll get some answer. We'll get some answers. So again, we have to realize our good fortune to be able to have the connection with Srila Prabhupada and the great acharyas in the line, 6 Goswamis coming from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all the way back ultimately to Krishna. So this is the process. We have to inquire submissively. Tadvidi pranipratena shnena sevaya upadekyanti te gyanam gyanena tatvadashina. This is the process that Krishna gives. He says, just inquire from the spiritual master, inquire submissively, render service, And the self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth, or is fully established in the truth. So it's a very special thing. So this is Prabhupada saying just there, back a bit, those who are serious students of the Vedas are very much attached to the ritualistic ceremonies in the Vedas, and therefore these Vedavadis cannot understand that the ultimate goal of the Vedas is to understand Lord Krishna or Vishnu. Continuing, those who have transcended the qualitative attractions, however, can understand Krishna, who is never contaminated by the material qualities. Therefore, Lord Vishnu is addressed here as Ananjana, free from material contamination. In the Bhagavad Gita 2.42, the crude Vedic scholars have been deprecated by Krishna as follows. Yam imam pushpitam vacham pravadant ya vipaschita veda vada rata parta nanyad ashtiti vadinaha. Quote, men of small knowledge are very much attached to the flowery words of the Vedas, and they say that there is nothing more than this. So they're convinced that that's it. And that, yes, it's tricky because I don't have the Bhagavatam. I'm just looking at this Kindle. That is the end of the purport. I'll just go back slightly. So men of small knowledge are very much attached to the flowery words of the Vedas, and they say that there is nothing more than this. We might be going, I'll just go back slightly. 242. Let's just actually look at Bhagavad Gita and see if we can find that little part, because that is Prabhupada's focus at this point in the purport. The 242. 241. Interesting. Let's just go back a bit to 240 and see what comes up there. 240. Okay, so 239. Krishna speaking. Thus far, Arjuna, I have described this knowledge to you through analytical study. Now listen as I explain it in terms of working without fruit of results. O son of Pritha, when you act in such knowledge, you can free yourself from the bondage of works. Then Krishna continues. He says, those who are on the path are resolute in purpose, and they aim as one, O beloved Kurus. The intelligence of those who are irresolute is many-branched. Let's read Srila Prabhupada's purport. A strong faith that by Krishna consciousness one will be elevated to the highest perfection of life is called Vyavasayatmika intelligence. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya-lila 22:62, it states, Shraddha Sabde Vishvashakahe Sudridha Nischaya Krishna Bhakti Kailai Sarva Karma Kritahai. Faith means unflinching trust in something sublime. When one is engaged in the duties of Krishna consciousness, not act in relationship to the material world with obligations to family traditions, humanity, or nationality. Fruitive activities are the engagements of one's reactions from past good or bad deeds. When one is awake in Krishna consciousness, he need no longer endeavor for good results in his activities. When one is situated in Krishna consciousness, all activities are on the absolute plane, for they are no longer subject to dualities like good and bad. The highest perfection of Krishna consciousness is renunciation of the material conception of life. This state is automatically achieved by progressive Krishna consciousness. We'll say that again. The highest perfection of Krishna consciousness is renunciation, or the giving up of the material conception of life. And this state, Prabhupada is saying, is automatically achieved by progressive Krishna consciousness. So it will be achieved in the progress of continued Krishna consciousness. The resolute purpose of a person in consciousness is based on knowledge. Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sadurlabhaha. A person in Krishna consciousness is the rare good soul who perfectly that Vasudeva or Krishna is the of all manifested causes. So that's what we're hearing in the Bhagavatam, these verses that we're hearing, the Krishna or the Supreme Personality of Godhead is completely self-sufficient. So he is the root of all manifested causes. Now, to understand that, it's very important. We can't speculate to understand this. It is beyond our speculative ability. We can't speculate. We must hear. So this is the difference. This is the parampara system, hearing and acting by hearing from Krishna himself, ultimately. Prabhupada gave us the example of trying to understand a great person. You may speculate, oh, I think the person like this or like that, but actually if you approach the person and hear from them directly, you can understand what they're actually like, what their likes are, what their dislikes are, and so on and so forth. Continuing, as by watering the root of a tree, one automatically distributes water to the leaves and branches. So by in Krishna consciousness, one can render the highest service to everyone, namely the self, family, society, country, humanity, etc. If Krishna is satisfied by one's actions, then everyone will be satisfied. Just like watering the root of everything is the branches, the twigs, the fruits, the flowers, everything will be satisfied. But if you try to water the twigs and not the root, then you're going to have problems. So that's the problem in the material world, is that we're all busy watering twigs and flowers, little parts, instead of watering the root, which will automatically satisfy everyone. Continuing, serving Krishna consciousness is, however, best practiced under the able guidance of a spiritual master, who is a bona fide representative of Krishna. It is the nature of the student to act in Krishna consciousness. It's worth noting at that point that we should understand that Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada knows us all very well. Sometimes you think, well, I don't have a connection to Srila. I wasn't here when Srila Prabhupada was here. But he knows very well the nature of, actually, if he knows you personally is also an added benefit, but he knows very well how to guide all of the fallen souls of the Kali. We're all more or less in the same category in that sense. First, in Krishna consciousness, one has to act firmly and obey the representative of Krishna. One should accept the instruction of the bona fide spiritual master as one's mission in life. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur instructs us in his famous for the spiritual master as follows. Yasha prasada bhagavat prasado yasha prasada nagati katopi dayam stavam tasya yashastri sandhyam vande guru charanara. Translation, by satisfaction of this spiritual master, the Supreme Personality of Godhead becomes satisfied. And by not satisfying the spiritual master, there is no chance of being promoted to the plane of Krishna consciousness. Wow, it's a very important verse. By not satisfying the spiritual master, chance of being promoted to the plane of Krishna consciousness. I should therefore meditate and pray for his mercy 3 times a day and offer my respectful obeisances unto him, my spiritual master. End quote. The whole process, Prabhupada continues, however, depends on perfect knowledge of the soul beyond the conception of the body, not theoretically, but practically, when there is no longer a chance for sense gratification manifested in fruit of activity. One who is not firmly fixed in mind is diverted by various types of fruit of. So this vyavasayatmika buddhi, this intelligence, is a special attribute. Bahushaka is general tendency in the material world. This verse explains that we are many branched in our intelligence to search out where is that Sat Chit Ananda existence. And the devotee is vyavasayatmika buddhi. He is fixed in consciousness because he is realized by hearing, by understanding, and practical experience of this world that this material world is not able to bring that Sat Chit Ananda. And therefore, he gradually learns the process of Krishna consciousness to bring the mind constantly to Krishna. Krishna is always encouraging in that way. Man manaba mad bhakta majajimam namaskuru. Always think of me. You have to think of something instead of thinking of all the things of the world, this split intelligence, so many varieties. And people think like that. They think, oh, but Krishna this and Krishna that. Talk Krishna, you chant Krishna. You're all about Krishna. Arrow. We want a broad spectrum. The devotee looks and sees you're simply chewing the chewed again and again and again and again, the eating, the sleeping, the mating, and defending. It's very narrow from the devotee. The devotee thinks, I don't want to keep doing the same thing that I've been doing through so many species of life. It's going on in all the species. But the Maya Shakti is so powerful, it says, no, there's so many varieties. You can become a bird and fly, you become a fish and swim, you can live in the water, you can live in the sky, you can live anywhere you want to. You can do so many things. Don't get stuck. Ride horses, ride motorbikes, drive cars, so much variety. But basically, it's the same thing. You're just chasing your tail like a dog. The dog is running. It looks very active. But we are able to perceive the dog is not doing anything. It just runs, catches a ball, brings it back. The dog's thinking, wow, this is great. I'm having a great time. But do you like running and catching a ball or whatever the dogs are doing? We have higher things. So Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam is encouraging us that actually now you've attained this human form of life. You're not supposed to work like a dog or an ass or yeah. You're supposed to be interested in higher things. Lord Rishabhadev, I was thinking of that verse. Deho deha bhajamri loke kastan kaman arhutam vidbhudyamye tapodevyam putraka yena sattvam sudyedyasmad brahma sokyam. It's the brahma sokyam we want. Brahma sokyam means spiritual happiness. So that's what we're searching for. Every living being, not just the devotees, every living being is searching for that eternal blissfulness. So that is Brahma Sokyam. There is a spiritual blissful existence. So that is the Vyavasayatmika, to be focused in that way and not to be distracted, or Prabhupada says, one who is not firmly fixed in mind is diverted by various types of fruit of acts. So that is to be practiced, and it requires practice. That's the whole thing. Arjuna says to Krishna, my dear Lord, the process of yoga that you're explaining to me, it seems more difficult than trying to control the wind. So we all know that this is not an easy process. And Krishna replies to Arjuna, yes, what you're saying is true. It is undoubtedly difficult. Mahabaho, O mighty armed Arjuna, he calls Arjuna mighty armed. It is undoubtedly difficult to control the mind, but it is possible. So it's really difficult, yes, we agree, but it is possible by suitable practice and by detachment. So we have to practice. I was listening last night to Srila Prabhupada speaking on that subject of practice. He said it requires that we practice. Uh, uh, Gradually, by practice, one becomes perfect, isn't it? You know, at the beginning, we can't do something, but if you practice, you practice, you practice. And Prabhupada gave the example. He said, just like running, he said, because I don't, if I try to run, even, he said, many people, they go out running in the Western countries and they practice and they can run for maybe 3 or 5 kilometers or whatever distance run in a way. And Prabhupada said, but I can't do that because I've not practiced. He said, actually, I'd have heart palpitation if I tried that at that age in his 70s. So, but Prabhupada was making the point of practice. If we practice, we can do it. So it requires constant practice and it's suitable practice, Krishna says. So back to this subject, this verse, and connecting all of this to the Vedic knowledge. And text number 42, Prabhupada quoted earlier, he says, men of, Krishna speaking, men of small knowledge are very much attached to the flowery words of the Vedas. So we are seeing they're very advanced because no one's even close to the Vedas hardly, but there are some people still. But Krishna is saying men of small knowledge are very much attached to the flowery words of the Vedas, which recommend various fruitive activities for elevation to heavenly planets, resultant good birth, power, and so forth. Being desirous of sense gratification and opulent life, they say that there is nothing more than this. So they think that is the goal. Let's see if we can see how long this purport is, if I can find these little pages. It's not too long, so let's read. Srila Prabhupada speaking, people in general are very intelligent. And due to their ignorance, they are most attached to the fruitive activities recommended in the Karma Kanda portions of the Vedas. They do not want anything more than sense gratificatory proposals for enjoying life in heaven, where wine and women are available and material opulence is very common. In the Vedas, many sacrifices are recommended for elevation to the heavenly planets, especially the Jyotishtoma sacrifices. In fact, it is stated that anyone desiring elevation to heavenly planets must perform these sacrifices, and men with poor fund of knowledge think that this is the whole purpose of Vedic wisdom. It is very difficult for such inexperienced persons to be situated in the determined action of Krishna consciousness, as are attached to the flowers of poisonous trees without knowing the result of such attractions. Unenlightened men are similarly attracted by such heavenly opulence and sense enjoyment thereof. In the Karmakanda section of the Vedas, it is said, Apama somam amrita adhum and akshayam havai chaturmasya jigna sukritam bhavati. In other words, those who perform. Now remember, I'm making this point that we're talking of people who are very elevated in relation to our Western Malecha Desh. So those persons are being discussed as being very not so intelligent. In other words, those who perform the 4-month penances, nobody in the modern world wants to perform any penance other than go to work and get enough money for gross sense gratification. But these persons become eligible to drink the somaras beverages to become immortal and happy forever, relatively speaking, for a long duration. Even on earth, some are very eager to have somaras to become strong and fit to enjoy sense gratifications. Such persons have no faith in liberation from material bondage, and they are very much attached to the pompous ceremonies of Vedic sacrifices. Such persons have no faith in liberation from material bondage. So that is the process of the Bhakti Yoga process. It's not just elevation into higher positions in the material world, but to transcend, to become transcendental to the whole show, from higher to lower. They are generally, those persons are generally sensual, and they do not want anything other than the heavenly pleasures of life. It is understood that there are gardens called Nandana Kanana, and there is good opportunity for association with angelic, beautiful women and having a profuse supply of Somarasa wine. Ooh. I was going to say Haribo, we wouldn't say Haribo. People thinking, yes, this is it. What more could one want? Such bodily happiness is certainly sensual. Therefore, there are those who are purely attached to such material temporary happiness as lords of the material world. And I won't read the purpose, but just it goes on in text 44. In the minds of those who are too attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence, as being described in these previous verses, and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination for devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place. I will read the purport, it's only about 5 lines. Samadhi means fixed mind. The Vedic dictionary, the Nirukti, says, Samyag adiyate smin matva yatatmyam. When understanding the self, it is said to be in Samadhi. Samadhi is never possible for persons interested in material sense enjoyments and bewildered by such temporary things. They are more or less condemned by the process of the material energy. Interest Samadhi. We tend to think Samadhi is just sitting alone in a cave in a yoga lotus position and being in Samadhi. Is one definition, and certainly is a very exalted position. But the Samadhi that Krishna describes for the Bhakti Yoga process is that to always connect everything to Krishna. That is a Samadhi. All that you do, all that you eat, all that you offer and give away, all austerities that you perform should be done as an offering unto me. Always think of me, become my devotee, bow down, offer your obeisance to me. Thus you will come to me. I promise you this because you're my very dear friend, and you'll be most intimately united with me in yoga. That in the end of the 6th chapter, when all the yoga processes are described, and then Krishna ends the chapter by saying that of all yogis, he who always abides in me with great faith, worshipping me in determination, is the most intimately united with me in yoga, and is the highest of all yogis. So that was Srila Prabhupada's presentation, and that was Srila Prabhupada's life. We have beautiful memories of the beautiful videos of Srila Prabhupada that we can all view, where he shows the Samadhi, and he's talking, and he's moving, and he's acting, and he's flying in airplanes, and he's going to different places, and he's establishing Krishna consciousness in full Samadhi, fully absorbed, always talking and thinking about Krishna, always giving in so many shapes and ways and forms. So that is the life of the devotee, to become absorbed in this way. And if I can go back, I will. If I can get this back on, just to finish, we'll finish in a moment. And just if anyone is listening and would like to give any reflection on any of the verses or just the discussion so far, then in a few moments we'll do that. So you can unmute your mic if you would like to just reflect anything. It doesn't, just anything that you've heard is there in your thinking of your mind that you might take for next week or whatever way we can get forward. So back to this. Yeah, the one that's opening the screen at the moment is that the crude Vedic scholars have been deprecated by Krishna in that verse. And then he quotes the verse from Bhagavad Gita. That, so, reading it once more, the priests addressed the Lord, saying, "O Lord, transcendental to material contamination, curse offered by Lord Shiva's men, we have become attached to fruit of activities, and thus we are now fallen and therefore do not know anything about you." Very important. Yeah. So this, yeah, as I mentioned a lot earlier in the class, then this is the tendencies. If we don't, well, sharpen our intelligence in the Krishna process, then we will become dull in the brain, and we will absorb our consciousness in some other way to some other level. So the whole process that Prabhupada gave us is to keep sharpening the intelligence so that it becomes finely tuned to that samadhi absorption in Krishna consciousness. Because these priests are saying that now, due to this curse of Lord Shiva's men, we are now attached to fruitive activities. Although we're doing it very nicely and you're offering the proper yagyas, chanting proper mantras, but it's not bringing us to the higher levels of Krishna consciousness. They say, we therefore do not know anything about you. On the contrary, we are now involved in the injunctions of the three departments of the Vedic knowledge under the plea of executing rituals in the name of yajna. We know that you have made arrangements for distributing the respective shares of the demigods. Okay, so I'm going to finish there. If any has any reflection or comment or question. Please feel that you can unmute your mic and there, I think we will. Okay. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, Grantaraj, Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari.